How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Perfect Reload Weekly, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. My name is Steve, and I am joined, as always, by Christian Slater. Christian, what do you have to complain about this week, man?
Finally, I have a body again, but where are my arms?
Well, I took your arms away from you because you tried strangling me in the night. You wanted off the big screen. I got you a new body here. These CRTs are not easy to find, and, they're not cheap. And not to mention, I walked all the way to the driveway to get some ratchet straps, and now you're not going anywhere, buddy. You're good to go.
Look, I need to be mobile. I need hands to grip things. I have appointments to keep.
I don't want to know about your appointments. I hear the noises at night. Help. All right. Video games. I have experienced them live and in color. Several video games. All right. All right. Venba, we'll start with. Venba. So Venba came out. It's on Game Pass. Also out on PC. I'm not sure if it's out on PS5 or other platforms. It's the way it was kind of advertised was a cooking game, like a narrative cooking game, and I would say that it is. Although I would say that the cooking is very important and integral to the story. It's a story that's told via the mechanics of cooking, both gameplay wise, but also the mechanics of cooking in terms of bringing a family together and, sentimental memories and nostalgia of cooking, like that kind of thing. I think the downfall of it, though, is that there's just not enough cooking in it. I think there's maybe a dozen or less actually of these actual cooking puzzle gameplay segments. The game is incredibly short. When I checked my gameplay when I was done, it said 1 hour and 22 minutes, and that was after I had gone back after finishing the game to replay a chapter to get something that I had missed. Which I also want to bring that part up. There's two very important things in that game that are very easy to miss. I think that it's definitely worth playing. I don't know, it's going to be up to you whether or not you want to spend actual money on it versus getting it on Game Pass, because it is so short. But it's a nice little story. So what it is it's about two people, a man and a woman, husband and wife, who emigrate from India to Canada. It never says really where in Canada, but in Canada, and they speak the Tamil language. I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me if I'm wrong. And that becomes a big kind of aspect in the story because, they're not super great with English, and that's kind of reflected through them getting rejected for jobs and their kind of struggle. And then ultimately kind of the culture clash that begins to emerge within their own family when they have a son, and the son very much wants to speak English. He wants to fit in. He does not want to bring this culture's food to school. He feels embarrassed. And so it's a lot of that kind of push and pull with the family in the story is told through cooking. A lot of time jumps. It starts before the child is even born, and then he is I believe probably mid-20s by the time the game ends. I think that the story could have been done a little bit better. There are times where it is a little eye-rollingly cliche with what they do. They don't, I think they could have told a very interesting story about this clash of culture, and it's just kind of surface level. It would have been more interesting to dive a little bit deeper into it. And that's actually what I want to talk about with the two big story beats that are very easily missable. So this is going to be spoilers for this section, though I won't go into what the story beats necessarily give you. But there is a section of the game where you playing as the mother are texting your son, and you have the ability to kind of stop what you're doing during that section and scroll through your text history with your son, and that gives you a lot of insight into their relationship. And then there's another section, it's either the next chapter or the chapter after, where you're playing as the son, and you can scroll through his text history with, I can't quite tell if it's his boss or writing partner. He gets a job like writing for a television show, and you find out very quickly that they have specifically hired him to give representation to an Indian character on the show. And you can scroll through his text history to see, kind of the pushback he gets from wanting this to be like a very accurate portrayal of somebody growing up that was embarrassed by their culture and didn't want to bring it to school. And, the television writer or whoever it is, executive, whoever it may be, kind of being like, no, nobody really wants to see that. We want the show to be happy. We don't want to actually talk about the tough things that people go through. And I think that if they had kind of focused more on that sort of stuff and not relegated that part of the story to being these super missable, kind of almost bonus type story beats, the game probably would have been served a little bit better. The actual cooking mechanics, not hard. Kind of the gist of it is that when you're playing as the mother, you're using your mother's cookbook. So it's kind of old and beat up. There's like parts of a page missing or stains on it, and you can't make out words. So you kind of have to, figure out for yourself how to make this recipe. There's really no penalty for messing up a recipe. It'll just, you'll just get a line of dialogue that says like, oh, that didn't come out right. And then it'll just kind of reset. You can go back a step. So like you add water when you should have added rice instead or whatever it may be. You can hit a button and it'll go back. So yeah, it's a very casual game. Like I said, hour, 20 minutes. So with me going back and replaying that chapter, I probably actually finished it in probably about an hour, 10 minutes. So just barely over an hour to finish it. Definitely you can do it in one sitting. I just wish there was a little bit more to it. They very, like I said, surface level touch upon some really serious issues that people that emigrate to another country deal with, people that emigrate to another country and don't speak the language of that country deal with, but they just don't go deep enough into it. And maybe that was an intentional choice. Maybe they didn't want to bog this game about cooking down with that. Maybe they felt like it would be too much of a tonal shift. But for me, I would take that chance. I would, present this to the player and let the player make up their mind if this is too much to deal with. Some people don't want to admit the realities of the world that other people face. And, it's like, oh, well, I don't care about their plight. I don't want to deal with this. Let them decide, give them the tough choice, give them, the uncomfortable option, So I just wish it would have pushed a little bit further, but I did enjoy the game. I don't think it's a game I'm ever going to go back and play again. It was an enjoyable experience. I definitely would say if you have Game Pass and you have access to get this game at no additional financial risk than the money you're already paying for Game Pass, play it. It's something different. There's not a lot out there right now on the market like this that's current. There are certainly games that have done this kind of thing before. But it's a nice breath of fresh air, in the summer months. Venba, I recommend it, just with that kind of caveat that just, understand that it is a very, very short game. All right, next up, a game that is not short and not current, though has, about to be current again and talked about, is Cyberpunk 2077. So Cyberpunk, I've talked a lot about this game on this channel. I was very excited about it. I would say that one of my most anticipated games ever. I had fully bought into the hype surrounding it. I remember I even set my Xbox to New Zealand time so I could get the game early to download it immediately and start playing it. I don't want to say I raced through the game because that makes it seem like I missed a lot of stuff, but I played through the whole game in a week. So I missed a lot of the major patches. So I played a very buggy, kind of messed up version on the Xbox. I would have liked to have gotten it on PC at the time. But if you remember, at the end of 2020, supply chain issues. It was very difficult to get, the new consoles. It was very difficult to get graphics cards and all that. I just really wanted to play the game, so I ended up getting it on my Xbox One X. Played through it, all that. I enjoyed the game. I don't want to say that I hated the game. I hated parts of the game. I think that there are aspects of that game that were poorly done and poorly executed. And those are things that patches would not fix. The only way to fix some of those things would be to rewrite part of the story, replace scenes in the game, bring all the voice cast back, and redo parts of the game. Essentially remake the game and replace it with a better story and some better writing. And that just wasn't going to happen. But the game has been picking up its reputation over the past year or so. It's gotten popular again. People are digging it. They've done a lot of patches to make the game play better, run better, all that good stuff. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because in about a month and a half-ish from when this video game comes out, the long-awaited expansion, Phantom Liberty, is coming out. So we're going to be a little bit over 2.5 years since the game released, and now we're getting this expansion. But it's not just getting the expansion, which has new content, new missions, probably new weapons, all this stuff. They're doing this massive gameplay overhaul with it. I think they're completely redoing the perk system. Beyond that, I'm not quite sure what else they're doing. I know that they're messing around with some of the police response stuff. I don't know if they're changing the way the game feels, like in terms of like movement, aiming, that kind of stuff. I don't know if they're going to make any changes to that, so we'll kind of wait and see. So what I wanted to do was, now that I have a PC that can run this game, I picked up the PC version. It was on sale during the last Steam sale, and I was like, okay, well, let's play through the game. At the very least, get far enough into the game that I could trigger Phantom Liberty, and we could play this, running better on PC than the Xbox. I do have my end game, save still on my Xbox just in case. So I fired the game up the other day because I streamed it this past Saturday night, and I apologize. There's no game audio for that stream. That's my fault. I had it set up for the way I record my gameplay videos, not my stream, so the audio is going to a channel that doesn't exist on a stream. Unfortunately, I didn't have any viewers live that chimed in saying, hey, there's no audio, so I didn't know. To me, it looked like there was audio pushing out, so I apologize for that. You don't miss much. It's, some dialogue, bang, bang, but you can make your own sound effects. Here's kind of my thing, I guess, with Cyberpunk is, with all these patches and all these changes that they've made, game didn't feel any different to me. It felt exactly the same. And I was actually kind of surprised how poorly it ran on my PC. So I played it windowed at 1080p for the purposes of streaming it. And I had done that earlier in the week, so I could compare and contrast. And then I also did on my own personal time, played it in ultra wide, resolution. I have a 1440p monitor, and man, running it in ultra wide, it got down to barely above 30 frames a second. And in 1080p, it was just shy of 60 frames a second. And so I was like, all right, well, let's turn ray tracing off. Well, that didn't really make a difference. It was still running at like 45 to 50 frames a second. Sometimes I'd hit 60 if I was just kind of standing still and there wasn't a lot going on. So then I was messing around with like DLSS and all that stuff. And it was just like, man, I don't know. This doesn't really feel any different than the Xbox version. I mean, yeah, I guess, the ray tracing is fine. It looks good. There's reflections and things, but this is really not what I expected. And, these days in 2023, I don't have a top of the line PC anymore. I don't have a 40 series card. I have a 3080 and I have a 5900X processor. I do have 64 gigs of RAM. That's more so for other purposes besides gaming, because there's not a lot of games that are pushing, you don't need to have that for games, but, just odd. It was just really odd. And when I wrapped up the stream last night, and I stepped away from the game, I was like, is it really worth it for me to sit here and play through this game again for the next 10 hours or so just to get to where I can do this DLC when I have an end game save on the Xbox? And when Phantom Liberty comes out, I could just walk the Xbox into my office, plop it down next to me and capture card it. Like, I don't know. Like it's, I could speed through it. We turned on unlimited health, unlimited stamina. I'm running, a trainer on the game just because I want to blitz through this game to get to this point. So it just was kind of odd. It was just like, man, I figured the performance would just be better. I don't know. Maybe I need to keep tinkering it around, but I've been playing other games that are fairly intensive. Red Dead 2 doesn't have the same level of it doesn't have any ray tracing really, but I mean that's a graphically intensive game, and especially with some of like the upgrade mods that I'm running when I run that game, like that should really be pushing the system just as much as Cyberpunk is, with Cyberpunk with having a ray tracing turned off and all that, but with DLS turning on to provide the assistance there. And it's just like, I'm getting 75 frames a second, 80 frames a second on Red Dead 2. It's just like, something's just not lining up here. And it could be, maybe I just need to spend more time messing with the settings. I spent a good half hour in that settings menu, like really kind of screwing around with it. But it was kind of surprising, And I think the other thing that I realized about Cyberpunk is, while I am very excited to play Phantom Liberty, I want to see what they do, I don't think I really ever want to play through the entirety of Cyberpunk ever again. Even with the ability to do different choices and get a different ending and all that, like, I just don't know if I want to do that. As much as I did enjoy that game, its problems are still there. And like I said, those are problems that patches cannot fix. So yes, I'm excited for new content, but the content that exists, the way Cyberpunk is, that world is just not lively enough to get up to those open world hijinks that you do in a GTA, a Red Dead, even like an Assassin's Creed or something like that. It's just not there. The world is just kind of lifeless. It's got a lot of cool ideas and interesting abilities and weapons and things like that, but that will only carry you so far, and it's not carrying me enough to really want to push forward with this. So one way or another, we will cover Phantom Liberty, whether I'm playing it on the Xbox version or I'm playing it on the PC version. One way or another, we will cover it when it comes out, and I am quite looking forward to it. Christian, you were hanging out in here when I was streaming playing Cyberpunk. Any thoughts on Cyberpunk?
I don't know what it is, but I feel a strong bond with this game. It's calling to me, and I want to answer that call.
Yeah, man, I think you should explore that feeling. Jack in, man. Punch some deck. Go for it. All right. The last game we will talk about, and there will be a video up tomorrow for y'all on the channel, is Thronefall. I've made a commitment, which I am very much enjoying, that during the summer kind of slow period, that we're gonna dive into all these indie games that are coming out, because there have been a lot of really cool games this year, some real gems out there. And Thronefall kind of caught my eye. There was an article about the game that I came across, and I read through that, and I was like, I'd like to try that out. And the way I guess I would describe it is one of those cozy games, but it's tower defense. And tower defense is a genre that I do enjoy. A good tower defense game. I actually, oddly enough, one of my favorites, it was kind of a throwaway game. I don't even think you can access it or play it anymore, was that South Park tower defense game that they did on the 360. It was a digital only game, so I don't know if there's a way to play it or not anymore. But that game was like pretty solid. This is pretty good stuff. But Thronefall, it's very, so far, pretty casual. I played about a half hour of it, and then I played a half hour of it not recording the video, played more with the video. And I enjoy it. I like it. It's got a pretty good rinse repeat cycle. You get attacked at night. So when you're ready for it to go night, I'm using a controller. I found the keyboard controls a little uncomfortable with my hand placement. So I'm using a controller, and that's fine. You'll hold down the A button, and a little meter will fill, and it'll be like, okay, it's nighttime now. And you'll see the time of day change, and then these knights, it's all medieval themed. These knights will come out, and they'll attack you and attack your base and all that stuff. And you can set up like guard towers that will rain arrows down, usually just one arrow at a time. And then you yourself are also everything is auto firing. So you're auto firing arrows as well. You can change your weapon. You unlock weapons, but you start with arrows. I unlocked a spear at one point. But you're auto firing these arrows, and then you're attacking them. And then you have a little circular meter above your head that fills. And when it's ready, you can press the A button, and you'll kind of do a short range, kind of like sword swipe attack towards the enemies, which is a little bit more powerful. Most enemies die in 2 hits to the arrows. I have not felt overrun at any point, but it's still very early in the game. I'm sure it's going to really ramp up. It's not run based. I think these days you would assume that a game like this would kind of have that roguelite element in it where it's run based, but it's not. If you die, you start from scratch. And it's pretty enjoyable. It's very chill. It's very, the art style is very minimalist, very tiny looking. It's from like a pulled up sort of almost like a civilization type point of view. And you can see your little village that you're building, and you can build houses, and they'll provide you currency. So when you finish the night, you collect all this gold, then you can build more houses. You can build more guard towers for more things. You can upgrade them. And then eventually you unlock like units, and you'll have these guys that follow you around, and it gives you an almost RTS-ish type interface where you stand next to them, you hold down the X button, and a circle engulfs them, and then they'll follow you. And then you can say, hey, stay here and go off and attack anything that comes. Or you could say, hey, just stay here, but stay put and only attack when something gets near you. So a little bit of strategy there. And, those guys actually have like a fair amount of health, and they'll take care of quite a bit of enemies for you. But, eventually they're going to die, but they regenerate, when the night is over and you're moving on to the next day, they regenerate. And then you can upgrade like your barracks to have more units that come out. You can build windmills that will provide, like grain fields and give you more currency. And that way you can, upgrade your houses, or, upgrade everything, or build new units, or, whatever it is, so it's got that, it's half unit building and money management and all that kind of stuff, but in very basic terms. This is not a complex game. And then the other half is obviously that combat, when you switch it to nighttime. Check out the video. It's a very enjoyable game. It's in early access, so I'm sure that they're going to add more over time. There is, when you finish a level, there's kind of like an overworld. I want to say, my memory is not great, even though I just played the game an hour ago before filming this. Looked like maybe 4 levels, something like that. It's possible that once you get to that 5th one, there are more, and maybe you can only see so much at a time. But if it is early access, the more likely option is there's only the 4 or 5, and then you'll get more. But yeah, I would say it's definitely enjoyable if you're looking for something to just kind of chill out and play and not worry about things too much. It's not like an overwhelmingly stressful type of game like a lot of RTS games are, even a lot of like faster pace tower defense games are. It's definitely kind of its own thing, and it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it, and I would definitely recommend it. And like I said, video coming out, so you can take a look at it. Christian, you have any thoughts? You were in here getting ready for the show while I was playing it.
I really hope you're not going to play this game anymore, because I can't sit there any longer listening to you go, king in the castle, king in the castle.
Hey man, sometimes you feel like Borat in a hotel room, man. You're feeling good. My horse was. You hold down the trigger and your horse goes faster, and I'm on a fast horse. So yeah, that'll pretty much wrap up what I've been playing. One other thing, it's not a current game, so I didn't really feel the need to really, dump it in here, and I only played a little bit of it. But there was a game that apparently has been out for a couple of years that got put on Game Pass this week called A Short Hike, and that was very enjoyable. I kind of just zoned out for like an hour and a half the other night. Before going to bed and played some of that. I want to play more of that. It's pretty cool. It's seems like we're getting more of these kind of chill experience games, these cozy games, if you will. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. So, that's what I've been up to in terms of the video games, and we'll be back in just a moment with the news. All right, we are back with the news, and Activision is suing Melon. Anthony Fantano, also known as the internet's busiest music nerd, who hosts the channel The Needle Drop on YouTube. He's been pretty widely well-known music critic and reviewer for a long. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. He's incredibly popular. To be honest, I don't watch his stuff, despite obsessive nature with music. He just doesn't review a lot of the stuff that I listen to, but it's, I like to hear his opinion on stuff from time to time. So, I certainly have, watched enough of his stuff over the years to have a level of familiarity with him.
Isn't this the guy on YouTube that says that every band you like sucks?
Yes. I pretty much every time I like an album, I check to see if he reviewed it, and he did not like it. So yeah, he pretty much thinks that everything that I like sucks. But he is being sued by Activision. So this is an interesting thing because it covers a topic that I'm not quite super versed in. So I see both sides of the story, I guess. I understand why Activision is suing him. I know Activision is certainly painted as an evil company, and in many ways they are. But I kind of get their viewpoint on this, at least from the surface level of the way that this article from Kotaku is breaking it down. But I also kind of see his point of view as well. So this all originated because Fantano went viral with a TikTok audio, and if you're not familiar with the way that this works is, you can take the audio from any TikTok video essentially and apply it to a different one. This is like why there's, such a high level of popularity with lip syncing and stuff like that, or taking the audio of an unrelated video, but that audio can relate to the situation of your video, if that makes any sense. So it comes back to a clip of him watching somebody cut multiple slices of pizza back in 2021. I have definitely heard this before, this audio. I've never seen the original video, so I didn't know it was him. He has a fairly recognizable voice, but he's kind of screaming and it's, a little bit distorted. So I guess it just never really lined up. So I was kind of surprised to see oh, that's what this is about. I didn't know he did that. But essentially, what happens is, this is what the article says. The video garnered millions of views, spawned thousands of copycats, leading Activision Blizzard to create their own rendition of what is now a meme in a now deleted June 2023 TikTok promoting some Crash Bandicoot shoes. And then Fantano found out about it. He says it created a false endorsement of the product without him being associated with it. He sent the company a cease and desist letter at the end of June, asking them that they stop and also make a 6-figure settlement payment to him. And if the company didn't pay, he would, sue, initiate litigation, is what the article says. Here's the interesting point, though, is that Fantano took that audio and put it in TikTok's commercial sounds library, which specifically designates that audio as usable in advertisements. So Activision, if that's the case, Activision's in the right. Anybody can take that audio and use it to advertise your product. So I see both sides of the story here because, with him being of a level of fame on the internet, he has the right to endorse or not endorse a product or sponsorship or whatever it may be. And with having his face next to Crash Bandicoot, it makes it kind of seem like, we're promoting this, or even if it wasn't his face used, because since it was deleted, I can't see it. If it was just his voice, if they know it was his voice, sometimes down at the bottom, it'll say where the sound came from. So it could say from the Needle Drop or from Anthony Fantano, depending on the name of his TikTok account. Somebody could theoretically, I guess, surmise that means he's promoting it, even though it's not from his account. You would hope that maybe you'd be a little bit smartened up to the fact that unless he's putting it on his account, he's promoting it on his social media, that it doesn't involve him, because I'm certain that this is not the first time something like this has happened. You hear these audio clips being used all the time to promote things, and not even just promote things, just apply to this person's creation on TikTok or whatever it may be. So Activision's lawyers say this dispute is a textbook example. I cannot talk today. I'm sorry. This dispute is a textbook example of how intellectual property law can be misused by individuals to leverage unfair cash payments. Fantano was very happy to receive the benefit of the public use of the Slices video. It was only after he identified a financial opportunity, namely receiving unjustified settlement payments, that he suddenly decided that his consent was limited. The law does not permit, and the court should not countenance such overt gamesmanship. So it's interesting. Kotaku reached out to a lawyer that does say that anyone placing content in that library should be limited in their rights to challenge. That's a tough thing. If you create something and say specifically, hey, it's okay for you to then take this thing and do what you want with it, and then somebody does what they want with it, that's kind of on you, in a way. So I don't know. That's a tricky one, but I thought it was interesting because I definitely did not expect to see his name pop up with Activision suing him. So figured we'd touch upon that real quick. All right, next up is probably the big news of the week, and it's we've been hearing rumors for Nintendo's next system for quite some time now, but it seems that some actually solidly sourced information is coming out saying that it looks like it's going to be the end of 2024 for the next Switch or just next Nintendo console in general. This is coming from VGC, who is a trusted news outlet. It says development kits for Nintendo's next console are now with key partner studios with a launch planned for next year. And other outlets have confirmed that their sources have also said the exact same thing. So I would say that there's more so than any other previous rumor. This is probably, the most legitimate. And it's that time. It's probably honestly been that time for a while now. It's tough because the Switch was selling so well. It has finally started to slip a little bit. There have been plenty of games that just don't run well on the Switch. They're really losing parity with the other systems, despite, Nintendo does their own thing. They exist in Nintendo world. Their systems are always going to sell based on the strength of their first-party exclusives. They don't need those third-party games to sell their systems. But, that being said, it does become a tough financial situation sometimes for a video game player that may only have the money for one system, right? Well, what do I get? Do I get this Switch and lock myself into either no version of this third-party game, a lessened version of this third-party game, and just play Nintendo's first-party library and hope that they run right? Because not all of them have. Those Pokemon games have been a little rough. Yes, they work their magic with stuff like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, stuff like that, but some of the other stuff is struggled to keep pace. Or do they get a PS5 and have a system that can run everything pretty much perfectly okay? A wide library of third-party titles and great first-party stuff. Do they get an Xbox and enjoy the benefits of Game Pass? It's tough to kind of justify, I get the Switch, but then I'm just kind of locked into these handful of games. It's not like they're cranking out Mario games every year. There's going to end up being a grand total of 2 Switch exclusive Mario titles in the entire run of the system, Odyssey and then Wonder, which is coming out, because the rest have been ports. And then you got lucky, you got 2 Zeldas out of this. So, that was pretty good, but Mario Kart that's a Wii U Mario Kart, there weren't, I guess you could maybe count Pikmin, but Pikmin's not selling systems, Pikmin has a hardcore fan base and people are going to show up to play it, but it's not making people run out to buy a Switch, just for Pikmin. Maybe a couple people will, but it is what it is. But some details have been coming out. So the overall feeling is that it is essentially going to be in line with the power of a PS4. It looks like they're going to go with an LCD screen instead of an OLED screen. They're going to have to come up with additional storage because the Switch only has 32 gigs of internal memory. That's just not going to cut it. The current systems are coming with terabyte hard drives with the ability to expand into more. And yes, the Switch does. You can put a memory card in there, an SD card, and expand that. And I assume that they will. I also imagine that backwards compatibility is going to be a main focus of this. They don't want to alienate all of the tens and tens of millions of Switch users from having that library available. There was a quote that I want to see. Where was it? That there were some developers that were worried about having to keep in mind backwards compatibility. That might not be in this article, so I apologize for that. But essentially, I'm curious if what they mean is kind of the situation with the Xbox, where every Xbox Series X game needs to also work on the Series S. And that's the problem with Baldur's Gate 3 right now. The reason why the Xbox version is delayed with no real release date is because they can't get the game 100% running on the Series S. And seeing the stark contrast between a game running on the Series S and the Series X at times, sometimes it's fine, but at times is pretty out there. I remember the big one earlier this year was with Hogwarts Legacy, where it would take maybe 15 seconds to load into a new part of the world on the Series X, and it'd be like a minute on the Series S. That's a big drop off there. I think that the end of the year next year is probably the best time for this thing to come out. Have it come out in October, so it's ready to go for the holiday season. It'll be the hottest selling thing, no doubt about it. And apparently the word coming out of Nintendo is they want to release it as late in the year as possible so that they can have as much stock as possible to avoid a situation like what happened with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, where they were really hard to get and scalpers were buying them up, and people were either just going without or resorting to, like how I did. I entered a lottery system to get my PS5, or having to pay double the price to get one on eBay, whatever it may be. They want to avoid doing that. So it says, some other details, like its predecessor, the Switch, the new system will accept physical games via cartridge slot. There's over 100 million users on the Switch platform, so they definitely don't want to cut all of them out. Let's see if there's any other pertinent information here. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, so I think this is an interesting point here. This is a quote from ReedPop's head of games B2B, Christopher Dring. It says, the biggest competitor Nintendo faces is itself. Although its core fans are eager for more hardware, its more family-oriented casual fans will need more convincing. What will the next Mario Kart offer that they're not currently getting from the current one, for example? This is a very good point. Nintendo very much wrote themselves into a corner with the last Smash Brothers and the last Mario Kart. They opted to not do a new Mario Kart on the Switch. It is the Wii U one. Instead, what they've done is they've just kept it alive through course updates. A couple of new characters, new courses every quarter as part of their online system. And then Smash Brothers Ultimate had every Smash Brothers character in it that had previously appeared. As the name states, it's kind of the ultimate version of Smash Brothers. So what do you do with the next Mario Kart and the next Smash Brothers? I think for Smash Brothers, I think that what they are going to have to do is, there are still plenty of Nintendo characters that have not appeared as a playable character in Smash Brothers, like Waluigi. So I'm sure that they could still find new characters that have not been in there. But I think what they're going to have to do, and this is a very un-Nintendo thing to do, because Nintendo is always very behind the times on things. I think that what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to turn that thing into Fortnite. They're going to have to reach out to Marvel, Disney, Disney, I guess, is Marvel, but reach out to Disney, get Marvel licenses, Star Wars licenses, get characters from other pieces of entertainment and put them in there. Now, they're not going to do the Fortnite thing and go out and get, something from an R-rated franchise like John Wick, but, the Marvel stuff is family friendly enough that they could put Iron Man in the game or whatever it may be. I think that they're going to have to do that, or find some long-running partners of Nintendo and just get more of their characters in there. You know, there are characters from outside of, you know, Nintendo first party stuff that have appeared in Smash Brothers. You know, Snake from Metal Gear is in there. There's Final Fantasy characters in there. You know, there's Street Fighter characters, Tekken characters, all that stuff. You know, just get more of that, I think, is what they're going to have to do. And they're going to have to kind of turn it into a live service game. I don't know if that necessarily means make the base game free, like Multiverses did. They certainly could, and I think it would be successful. I think it would also draw more attention to their online service because, you know, of course you're going to have to make, you know, that be a qualification and a requirement to be subscribed to their online service, you know, and say, you know, you're going to give us X number of money. We're going to give you X number of characters. And then when new characters come out, they're going to be $5, $10, whatever it may be. And then once a quarter, you know, we'll give you a new stage or 2 new stages or whatever it may be. And they could make that sustainable for the entire lifespan of their next system. You know, if their lifespan is going to be that 7 to 8 year range, I think that that's probably the smartest thing for them to do. You know, it's going to be a constant source of income in a way that Nintendo has never really done before. They don't really have that live service sort of thing going for them where people are constantly pumping money into it, you know, like a Diablo, a Destiny, a Fortnite, a PUBG, a Call of Duty, whatever it may be. They don't really have that. And I'm sure Nintendo likes money, so it would kind of make sense for them to go along those lines to do something like that. For Mario Kart, that's a lesser thing. You could totally just do a new Mario Kart there's plenty of characters that have never appeared in Mario Kart. You can do that. And, you know, you can come up with new courses. It's not like, you know, that's, you know, obviously it's difficult to come up with good playing courses, but I mean, you know, they've done it for multitudes of Mario Kart iterations. You know, I don't think it's out of the realm to say that they could just come up with a new one and just make it look nice, you know, make it look flashy. If this system is going to output to 4K or whatever, and it's going to have the strength of a PS4, leverage that. Make it look really flashy and cool and, you know, bright and colorful and vibrant and all that stuff that, you know, Mario Kart kind of already is. Just, you know, pump it up further, you know, do another twist like you did with Double Dash, you know, come up with some gimmick, some hook for the game. I don't think it's that big of an issue for them to come up with new iterations for these games, even though they did sort of write themselves or back themselves into a corner with this stuff. But, you know, I haven't had a Switch oh man, I got rid of my Switch at the beginning of last year, so it's been over a year and a half now since I've had one. There's certainly some games that have come out that I wish I had. That, you know, if this comes out and it's backwards compatible, I can just go and pick them up. You know, it's not that big of a deal. Depending on what they put out and what the launch lineup is, I could see myself getting this day one when it comes out next year. But at the same time, I didn't get a Switch when it first came out. There just wasn't anything there for me at the time because I did play a lot of Wii U. And I remember, you know, like Mario Kart was available. And it's like, well, I just played a lot of Mario Kart. I don't necessarily need Mario Kart. But once Odyssey was out and kind of I could get a better idea of it, and, you know, there were a couple of games I was like, okay, I can get this one. I went out and got one. I think I got my Switch maybe 6 to 8 months after it first came out. Maybe it was a year. It could have been around a year. And I was happy with that. I had a little bit more variety to pick up, you know, when I walked into the store to buy one. So yeah, I was good to go with that. So, you know, I don't necessarily always need to be at launch with the system. Although with doing this now and wanting to cover it, you know, that's a little bit more of a push to be like, hey, you know, you should probably, if you're going to have a show about video games, you should probably buy the video games when they come out, you know, that kind of thing. But it's definitely long overdue. I and like many others are ready for the next Nintendo system. So I would say this is probably the most accurate look at when we're going to get one. You know, I think this is probably pretty likely end of next year. So, all right, next up, more rumors. Actually, you grab a drink of water real quick. Gotta stay hydrated, guys. Looks like Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion is going to get a remake. So I have kind of always, you know, I'm not a Elder Scrolls player, big fan. I played Skyrim and that was about it. I did play a little bit of Morrowind, played a little bit of Oblivion, but Skyrim was kind of mine. And I didn't even really finish it. I put 20, 30 hours into it, but I didn't ever finish the main story. I just kind of gave up on the main story after a while and just kind of bombed around the world and did whatever I wanted. That was kind of my take on the game. But I always, to me, felt like Oblivion was kind of the one that got left out. Morrowind is such a popular game still to this day. I know people that are still playing Morrowind right now. I know more people that when you bring up Elder Scrolls, they bring up Morrowind and they don't bring up Oblivion. I think Skyrim is probably the most popular one ever released. It got memed to death. It kind of entered pop culture there for a little bit. But it always felt like Oblivion was kind of left out. So this one getting a remake is pretty cool. So this article is from Video Games Chronicle. Definitely, like I said, a reputable site. But the initial rumor came from Reddit. So, take that with a grain of salt. Is apparently a former employee of Virtuous made the claim. It is a now deleted post on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit. It says that the user was verified by the subreddit's mod as being a legitimate former Virtuous employee. It says the user said that Virtuous is working on 5 separate projects, of which the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which we knew about, was only one of them. It says that they are also working on something called Project Alter, which is either a remake or a remaster of the Oblivion game, which will make the game run on both the Oblivion engine, but also Unreal Engine 5. There's a quote from their now deleted post that says, for instance, new graphics are rendered in the Unreal Engine 5, but most of the gameplay, physics, etc. are done in the original Oblivion engine. It says that they are looking at this game coming out the end of next year, beginning of 2025, depending on if it's a remake or a remaster. And the game is being worked on in Virtuous's Paris studio. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of games are getting remakes. A lot of games are getting remasters. I don't think we've ever really gotten one from Bethesda before, right? Like all their games kind of just exist in their form. There's no new version of Fallout 3 that I'm aware of, no new version of Fallout 4. Skyrim's gotten re-released, and there was that the definitive edition that made some changes, but I don't know if I would go and say that was a full-on remaster remake. And Morrowind is just kind of Morrowind. It still looks exactly like I remember seeing it the first time I saw that game. I actually have a really vivid memory of the first time I saw Morrowind. I was at my best friend growing up's house, and he had an older brother. He was probably 4 years older than us, something like that. And he was like, oh, my brother's been playing this game. If you want to go check it out. And went into his bedroom and he had this Xbox. And I remember it was set up with a little CRT TV. And he was just hanging out on the edge of his bed playing Morrowind. And he was like, yeah, this is all I've been doing lately. And he was just super into it. And I remember looking at it, I was like, man, I've never really seen a game look like this. It didn't interest me enough to go buy the game for myself or ask my parents to get it for me or anything like that. But I just remember that first time I saw it, I was like, man, I haven't really ever seen anything like this at the time. And it was kind of cool. That memory is just completely stuck with me. I have some fond-ish memories of Oblivion. I remember because that memory of Morrowind had stuck with me so much that when I got my Xbox 360, which was not at launch, it wasn't until much later, they had a deal at the time at the store that I got it from. It was like, oh, you get the system in 3 games, and all the employees were like, well, you should get this game called Oblivion. And I was like, oh, it's the people that did Morrowind. They're like, yeah, the same series. It's, it's the next game. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I got it back, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't feel the same, or didn't provide me with that kind of same hit in my brain. And I just kind of fell off the game, and I just wasn't really into it. And then when Skyrim came out, I don't really like fantasy type stuff. I've said that before. It's not my favorite genre in the world, but the hype for Skyrim was just so big that I got sucked into it, and I ended up picking it up launch weekend. And if you remember, the PS3 version of that game was totally fucked at launch. And I ended up just getting rid of my PS3 version and getting on PC and being totally fine with it after that. And, I spent a good amount of time on that game. Like I said, like 30-ish hours, which, in the relative, a lot to me, but, some people have been playing that game for thousands of hours. They're just, they never played anything else. But I think it'd be nice to see Bethesda stuff kind of get that remake, remaster treatment. I think a lot of people would really like that. I do think it's an odd choice that they would go with this first and not a Fallout 3. But, you know, I don't know. That's not to say that maybe somebody else is working on Fallout 3 somewhere, you know. So a little bit of an interesting choice there. But I think it's a cool choice because it is a game that is kind of underrepresented out there. I don't want to say it's forgotten about because it's a major franchise, but it's definitely not, you know, it's not near the top tier list when people kind of rank off their favorite Bethesda games. I don't hear Oblivion come up all that often. So hopefully that comes out and hopefully people enjoy it. All right, next thing up is the PS5 beta that came out, and it's adding some new options for the console level of PS5, including some sound options, some accessibility options, all that good stuff, and we'll roll through the list real quick. The internet is, that's great. Internet is going slow. Here we go. Okay. All right. So accessibility features, you can use a second controller for assistance. So essentially you can assign a second controller to one account as an assist controller. So that way if somebody's playing the game, they are stuck, you can pick up the other controller and kind of take over for them and help them out. The big thing for me is that there is going to be support for Dolby Atmos now. So Dolby Atmos is something that I invested in when I redid my setup, you know, TV and speakers and all that stuff. And it's pretty cool. I like Atmos. I don't know if it's just the way my room is, my house is set up, whatever. I don't get the full experience of Atmos at times. It all depends on how the movie or whatever I'm watching is mixed. You know, some stuff like Top Gun, you definitely felt it more than, you know, just a kind of run-of-the-mill action movie. Essentially, what Atmos is it's top-flaring speakers that bounce off the ceiling and, you know, overhead effect, you know, that kind of thing. So it'll be nice to have that in there. They're making some changes to like the party UI, the game hub tournaments and stuff like that. One of the nice things is, and I cannot believe that this was not in the system settings at launch, but I guess I never really messed around with it, is now you can search for games within your game library. It seems like that should have been a day one thing, but it was not. And then kind of the biggest thing, I guess, for probably most people is there will be support now for larger M.2 drives that you can pop into your system to give you extra storage. It will now support up to an 8 terabyte M.2 drive, which let's, out of curiosity real quick, let's go over to Newegg. How much is an 8 terabyte M.2 drive? Okay, it's $1,000. So I don't really think a lot of people are going to be running out to get that. I put in a 1 terabyte additional drive in my PS5, and then it's been perfectly fine. I have not had an issue of running out of space. So I don't know what you are doing if you need an 8 terabyte drive. You probably don't need to have all those games installed all at once. But at the same time, if you are willing to spend $1,000 on a hard drive, that's the least money and cost is probably the least of your issues. But it's nice to see that we're getting these kind of upgraded things. You know, the Dolby Atmos thing is really cool now. If only they could find a way to work Dolby Vision in there, that would be really nice. And find a way to make Dolby Vision work with games better. If you remember back when Diablo was in their beta, I brought up that I had downloaded Xbox's Dolby Vision app, because in order to get Dolby Vision to work on the Xbox, you have to download the Dolby Vision app and run that in the background. And I had put that on, and I didn't have any issues in the Diablo 5 beta or Diablo 4 beta. But man, when I tried playing a sports game with Dolby Vision turned on, I had probably about a good 10 to 15 second lag on the button input. And I was like, well, this isn't working for me. And so I had to turn that off real quick. So maybe we could find a way to get that to work with games. That'd be pretty cool. I'd be all right with that.
When am I going to get a new update? I have urges that must be met.
I want to hear about your urges and how they need to be met, but I got you an update. You just got the ratchet strap update, and you're not going to fall. You're fine. And even if you do fall, there's that shitty little couch under you. You're fine, dude. All right, last up this week, this story just keeps updating even today, because it's like the biggest thing out there right now. Baldur's Gate 3 is just blowing up, man. It kicked off on Thursday as the second biggest Steam launch of the year, trailing behind only Hogwarts Legacy. So when Hogwarts Legacy launched, it had a peak concurrent player count of 879,308 users. Baldur's Gate hit 427,000 users on Thursday, but by Saturday, they hit 700,000 users concurrently and are now sitting at 8th all time on the concurrent user list. On Friday, they had got to 630,000, which beat out Apex Legends to put them towards the bottom of the list. But yeah, 700,000 people now. And this is like having an impact on the PS5 version that's coming out. The PS5 version is now the number 2 best-selling pre-order on the PlayStation Network, only behind probably the most mainstream of mainstream games, Madden 24. That's huge. It is higher because I'm looking at the screenshot now. It is more pre-ordered than Spider-Man 2, which is a first-party Sony game that is super well anticipated, and Mortal Kombat 1, another really anticipated game, and NBA 2K24, one of the biggest sports games of the year, and a really big, wide, user base. It's also more pre-ordered than EA FC 24, which is the successor to FIFA. One of the most played games in the whole world. So, I mean, to say that this launch of Baldur's Gate 3 is huge is an understatement. It is completely taking over right now. It's all I'm hearing about is people playing this game I don't listen to a lot of video game podcasts, but the ones that I do listen to and the news and the stuff I follow on X, it's no longer Twitter, it's X. It's all everybody's talking about. I buy into hype, just like anybody else. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. I played the game once and I acted like an asshole unintentionally in it. And I thought that I was going to throw the story for a twist. And I realized I was just wrecking things for everybody. So I was not asked to play again. So I don't have any real history with that. I played a little bit of Icewind Dale back in the day, and some of the other kind of classic computer RPG games, some of which were tied into Dungeons & Dragons and some weren't. So I've heard that you might struggle a little bit with the lore of Baldur's Gate 3, but it's something you can easily get through. When I was watching footage of people play, it's very daunting. When you look at something like Diablo and you see like your abilities down at the bottom, even that, just like having the handful can seem like a little overwhelming at times. And I mean, this thing looks like, you're scrolling through the emoji section on your phone. It's just icon on top of icon. And it's like, man, obviously that game, the combat stops and you can take stock of what you need to do and all that. And I guess there's like an easier difficulty setting. So I don't know. We'll see how the next couple of weeks go for video game releases. I might end up checking it out. As I'm really trying to be mindful of my time. I definitely kind of overshot this month in terms of what I need to do, games I need to play, and all that stuff. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe I can fit it in there somewhere because it's not a game that I'm going to complete. The game's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. But I would like to at least experience it to kind of join in the conversation and understand the conversation a little bit more. But hats off to Larian Studios for doing that. That's incredible. It's absolutely awesome for them. I am sure that they are very, very excited for how their gamble kind of paid off because they hired a lot of additional people to work on this game. So it's awesome for them and super excited for everybody that's just really digging this game. So maybe we'll have some coverage of Baldur's Gate 3 over the next couple of weeks. But before we go, we do have some channel stuff to get into. So I initially wanted to have the next Perfect Reload video done by the end of August. And like I just said, I kind of overshot overextended my reach for this month and really underestimated what I needed to get done this month in August, not just on the channel, but just life in general. So I don't know if it's going to be done by the end of August. It'll be out within the next couple of months. I'm also running into some technical issues. Some of the stuff I use to edit those videos is not running right after a recent Premiere update. I tried dialing back to a previous version of Premiere and it's just not running right. I don't quite know what's going on with that. So even with the script almost done, I wouldn't really be able to edit it right now anyways. So I got to get all that stuff sorted out. That's like my plan for this week is to get that figured out. I'm carving out some time to do it. The other thing is so this coming week, so the show a week from today on the 14th, there'll be an episode of Perfect Reload Weekly. There's a couple of videos coming out on the channel this week as well. But the following week, I'm going out of town. So I don't know what's going to happen with this show. So I typically film this show on Sundays, and I'm out of town on the 20th, which is 2 weeks, a little bit less than, 2 weeks from when I'm filming this today. Which, okay, yeah, maybe I could just film on Saturday, but I have to go out of town on that Saturday as well. So there might not be an episode that week. I'm mulling around what I want to do. It's possible that maybe on the 20th, we do a live episode and I can just stream the show instead. It would obviously not have all the bells and whistles and all this stuff. It would just be me talking with just like the background I use when I'm streaming. So I would not have the time to get everything done from a technical standpoint to run the show like we typically do. Or maybe we just skip a week and just do a double episode the next week. I'm not sure. But also around that time, I believe... maybe, yeah, it would be that following week. I think Friend Davis might be back on the show because he wants to talk about Armored Core, and that's when Armored Core is coming out. So maybe you'll see if we can have him then, or maybe we really pack things. Obviously, we'd still do a show, but maybe not have him come until the first week of September. So that way we could talk about Armored Core and Starfield and really just have a great conversation about some of the big releases of the past couple of weeks that time. So we'll see what happens, but I'll keep you guys posted on what's going on in terms of this show over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, next week there'll definitely be an episode unless I get hit by a bus or something, but I might have to take the following week off simply because I am going out of town, but that'll pretty much wrap things up. So on the channel this week, tomorrow, you'll see the Thronefall video, some gameplay of that. Also later that week is Laika. It has a subtitle, Laika Age Through Blood. It's an upcoming game that looked kind of interesting, combines some Metroidvania and motorcycle mechanics, I think is what it was. I watched like a couple minutes of footage and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to stop watching this and play it. So there's a demo out. I think we're going to check that out. WrestleQuest also comes out this week. So if I'm able to get my hands on that and get some, we'll talk about that. At the very least, talk about it, maybe have a video the following week. We'll see how it goes. And then the last thing is, so I have started a TikTok, and yeah, I am terrified of TikTok. But Perfect Reload is now on TikTok. The account is just called Perfect Reload. The link is on the YouTube channel. You can get to it if you want to check it out. It's going to be a lot of the same shorts that you see here on the YouTube channel, although I'm releasing them in different in a different order, and I'm only doing a specific kind of short on TikTok. So if you've been watching the YouTube shorts on this channel, you see that I've experimented with a few different things, kind of some of that scripted comedy stuff, some news updates, some informative trivia type things, and trying to see what works. And I found out very quickly that the new stuff just does not work. So that's not happening again. But people seem to like the comedy stuff. That gets kind of like the most views. And then the like the retro stuff was kind of next behind that. But the TikTok is just going to be for the comedy stuff. I don't know if I don't think I'm going to put up anything on there that I wouldn't put up on YouTube. But if you just prefer TikTok over YouTube Shorts, you can go follow it over there, and we'll see how that goes. It's been off to a really good start. I've been getting either the same or more views on TikTok as I do on YouTube, so it's pretty close parity, which is nice. And then the last thing is I was listening to something the other day. Somebody talked about registering domain names and the new domain names that have been released, and I saw that .boat was out. It was either .boat or .boats, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I got Perfect Reload .boats? And so I did my domain search and found out that perfectreload.com was available, which I was really surprised because it's like, there's no other business entity that I'm aware of that it's called Perfect Reload. That's why I changed the name of the channel to that, so I can kind of own it. Although it was taken on Instagram. I was kind of surprised. So I don't have it on Instagram, but I have it on everything else. But yeah, perfectreload.com was available and only for a couple of dollars. So I bought it. So if you want to go to perfectreload.com, you can. All it does is bring you to my link tree that has the links to this channel, TikTok, Instagram, and my personal Twitter, which I've been trying to use a little bit more to promote the channel. But yeah, so I was kind of surprised that was available. So yeah, I might still go buy perfectreload.boats unless somebody else is. If somebody else buys it, awesome. You know, just don't get me canceled, man. You know. But I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, so that'll wrap up the show for this week. Before we head out, Christian, you have anything you want to say? Any wisdom you want to impart?
See you later, buttholes. I'm hauling ass to the hard liquor and handgun store.
Awesome, man. Enjoy. But that'll do it for me. We'll see you again real soon. Take it easy.